talking is something you need to get good at. If you're good at talking, you have the gift of the gab, as they say, you can sell anything. No matter what you're selling, the better you get at talking, the better you're gonna sell it. So if there's one skill you need to practice for your sales, it's how to talk. How to talk convincingly, how to put energy into your presentation, how to not be boring. Learn to speak. If you don't have my body language course, there's a course on covertate.com that teaches you body language, and we cover oration. We talk about talking and how the way I talk, what I do, things, tips, tricks, etc. If you want to learn to talk like me, the Grand Master, I'll teach you. But you need to be good at speaking. Being good at speaking will make you be good at selling. They are the same thing. Get used to talking. I've been in presentations over and over again with people who have a fantastic product, fantastic information, great price point, but the presentation is slick, they've got the PowerPoint, etc., but they're just not good at talking. There's no fucking X factor with their talk. There's no pa-pow. You need to have that pa-pow. You need to get good at talking. Practice it. Practice getting good at talking. That's one of the most important skills you can learn for life. From getting women to selling products, exactly the same thing. You need to get good at talking. It's important. So, there's lots of different ways you can get good at talking. My way, the way I talk, suits my personality. You have to develop your own type. But I try my best to make sure I put loads of energy into how I speak. Most people speak and they don't realize super low energy. And when you have the ebook, you don't sell the ebook, you sell the result of the ebook. Because if you sell the ebook, you're bored already. I'm bored. So I scream and I move my arms around and shit. I'm eccentric. I'm over the top. You don't have to be that way. There's other ways you can also be engaging without being the same as me. I know lots of other guys who are engaging other ways. But you have to develop an angle to be engaging. So next time you talk to someone who's an engaging speaker, find out why they're engaging. Even some people are engaging because they laugh all the time. People like positivity. So have you ever been around someone who's like constantly like laughing when they talk? But then you're like, well, you listen more. Because what the fuck's so funny? His life seems great. I want to know what he knows. Find a way to differentiate yourself one way or another. There's loads of different tips and tricks. I can't tell you to be like me, because I'm me and you're you. But you need to find a way to be engaging. And the way you do that is next time you're listening to someone and you're particularly engaged, work out what about them is engaging. So I like to be high energy. But high energy always helps. Being low energy never helps anything. Even if you're shit in bed, at least if you're high energy, it'll be better than if you're low energy to fucking do something. One thing you do need to avoid is, everyone does it, but if you'll notice, you're watching this university, I'm not reading off a teleprompter, I'm doing everything off the top of my head, and I very, very rarely start stuttering or saying, I've trained it out of my brain. And I teach how to do that in the body language course. So if you're watching this and you want to be able to speak like me, free-flowing, machine gun, get the body language course. But you start slowly. You talk slowly, you breathe, you make sure you don't make any and then you get better at it, and then you can be as quick as me. Now I talk very, very fast without mistakes, without gaps. And will lose you a deal. So explain to me how the flux capacitor works. Okay, so you just lost it. You just lost a deal right there. And 99% of people will do exactly that. Even people who are good, even experienced people. Okay, so why? How does the flux capacitor work? I'm going to tell you exactly how the flux capacitor works. Here's how it works. Look at this. I just got the deal. You didn't. All I did was repeat his question. You're saying, so you have time to think. I'm repeating the question, so I have time to think. Tell me how the flux capacitor works. Okay, or tell me how the flux capacitor works. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you exactly how the flux capacitor works. All I did was repeat his question. It's not complicated. There's tips and tricks so you learn how to speak without sounding like a moron. If someone and ahs in a presentation with me, I won't buy from them because I don't like that shit. I don't speak that way. Learn how to not speak that way. Andrew, I want to learn to speak like you do. The way you talk on podcasts is why they're so monumentally successful. I want to speak like you do. How do you practice? How often do you practice? And I tried to explain to him. I said, brother, you're 42 years old. I'm 36 years old. You've been speaking longer than me. So it's not about practice. The difference between you and I is I pay attention and I make sure that I get feedback. So if I do a podcast, I will watch it back and write down every time I made a mistake or every time I could have used a different word. I will sit there and actually analyze my work to get better.
You reflect.
I reflect. If you don't reflect and you just speak, you stay shit.
And how about communication? Who'd you look at? Were you always a good communicator? I can see you being a great communicator since you were 14 years old.
I was pretty good, yeah.
Okay. Who did you look at and say, that guy's good, but I think I can, do it better?
That's a good question. And I think that,
you know what I'm asking.
I know what you're asking. I don't know if there's one particular person I took nuances from, because when you're a great communicator, you know how to be serious and you know how to make people sad and angry, and you also know how to make people laugh. There's different people who can do lots of different things.
So who was that? Was it somebody that was multifaceted like that?
I think it was a lot of different people. And I also think that...
Did you pull from comedy as well, or no?
Certainly did, but I was also extremely self-critical. I think that's where a lot of it comes from. I'll watch this podcast back 15 times. I will notice every single time I made a mistake. Just then I said I'll watch twice. That was a mistake. I will watch this back 15 times and I'll identify every single error. I have an email list and I sign up and I get words of the day. I get 5 or 6 new words a day, which I try my very best to memorize. It's harder than you think to memorize 5 words a day, but I always try to make sure I have the most interesting vernacular I can possibly have. A wide vocabulary, so I'm going to be very specific with my points. The reason I actually did that, I keep talking about my dad, but I'm his son. I have the same name, Emory Andrew Tate III. He was Emory Andrew Tate II. My father was a linguist for the CIA. He spoke Russian and German and Spanish and English. And I think I've told this before. Back then, when they needed someone who spoke Russian, they would take a Native American and teach them Russian. Nowadays, we have a bunch of Russian-speaking allies. You can go to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. They're all NATO and just get a Russian speaker. Back then, they taught my dad Russian, and he held the Air Force record for the fastest assimilation of a foreign language. When he died, a guy sent me a message saying, "You don't know who I am, but I worked with your father in the Air Force." And he had the fastest assimilation. He learned Russian in 2 weeks. Crazy. And I remember saying to my dad, "Will you teach me Russian?" He said, "Boy, you don't even know English." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You don't even know English." And once he sat me down with a dictionary, I was like, "You're right. I don't even know English." That's why I've lived in Romania 7 years. People say, "Why don't you speak Romanian?" Because I don't know English yet. I need to finish the first job before I learn the second. I don't know English. There's a bunch of words I don't know. I can't speak how he spoke, so I don't have time for a second language.
Yeah.
Also, another thing I found really interesting, Putin speaks English. Have you ever heard him speak English? No. Because if you want to speak to Putin, you speak to him in his language. You speak to me in Russian. And I reply to you in Russian, so I cannot be misunderstood or misconstrued. I don't make a fool of myself. You can't get me on some vernacular trick. I speak my language, and I also prefer that also. I speak English. That's what I speak. If you want to speak to me, you speak to me in my language, so I will win the debate always.
Who'd you look up to outside of your dad?
I look up to lots of people.
I'm talking specifically younger age, not today. I'm talking 16, 20, 25, that age. Not today.
It's a good question. Because I always believed in trying to take the best parts of individual people and then amalgamate them. And I know you want a name, and I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I would look at people who I didn't even respect, but they'd have one particular thing about them. I thought, that's good. It could be somebody I didn't even like, but he dressed well. I think you just have to be perspicacious and look at people, and there's something you can learn from absolutely everybody, and just try and adapt it all. I'm not saying everybody should be clones of me. For everyone's individual, right? But there might be some things about me they find inspiring that they may adapt and take on board, and then they'll find some things from other people. But learning to speak is something I understood from a very young age how important that would be. That's a superpower.
Okay, so let me go back to the question I was asking, where I'm trying to go with this. So I asked the question, I said, imagine the 20-year-old that's watching this, that's saying, "No, Tate, don't give me the answer for anybody can create, contribute to society. I'm not that guy. Talk to me like I'm 1 in a million. Talk to me like I'm one in a million. So if I'm willing to give 20 years, 30 years of my life to one way to go up to make true positive impact in America, my country, in the world, don't talk to me like everybody else. What the standards, what should I do? What angle should I do?
Okay, so first things first, you need to be worthy of respect. And you're going to be worthy of respect through having things which are difficult to acquire. So first things first, the basic things, you need to be very focused on trying to make money, because people listen to you when you have money. They just do. Secondly, you need to be in fantastic physical condition, because when you're in fantastic physical condition, it cannot be bought. It must be earned. And people know that. When you're I don't know about you. If someone walked in to sell me something and they were obese, I would not trust them the same as if they were in fantastic physical shape. Because I'd say, I don't think you have dedication and heart. I don't think there's something about you that I just wouldn't trust you the same. So fantastic physical condition and money is the first thing. The second thing, whatever your ideas are, you need to learn how to communicate them. Speaking is a superpower in and of itself. You need to become a fantastic communicator. You need to be comfortable in all realms of communication. You need to be persuasive. You need to be comfortable arguing. You need to be good at debating. There's a lot of people out there in the world who have ideas that they can't even project into somebody else's mind. How are you going to rule the world with that? How are you going to get your ideas out there and make an influence if you can't make other people understand exactly what you think? That's the first thing. Second thing, once they understand exactly what you think, you need to make them agree with what you think. These are two different skills. Must be practiced and must be learned. If you're 20 years old and you want to change the world, you need to be having endless debates, endless, without resorting to name calling, not on Twitter like a dummy, in person. And you need to come across in a way that people agree with you. We can go back quickly and talk about the red pill. The difference between me when I talk to girls on these panel shows and every other guy when they talk to girls on these panel shows is, when I'm done, all the girls want me. Watch them. Watch the shows. I say the same thing, and by the end, the chicks are in love with me, as opposed to saying the same thing and the chicks thinking I'm a dickhead. That's the difference. I project my ideas and I make them agree with my ideas to a point where they're like texting me afterwards. I'm not saying anything different. It's how I'm communicating it. You can catch more flies with honey than hurting people sometimes. So you need to be good at everything. You need to have a Swiss Army knife of tools. I know when to be intimidating or aggressive. I know when to come across as obtuse. I know when to come across as exceptionally open-minded and easy to understand. I know when to come across as understanding. I know all of these things. This all has to be practiced. And a lot of it is, communication. I would say, if you're going to say to a 20-year-old who's truly exceptional and driven, I'd say you need to become a master communicator. Because once you can do that, you can do anything. And that fixes all the other problems, right? We talk about making money. If you're a master communicator, you do fantastic in sales. Yeah. You'll kill sales. Yep. You'll absolutely destroy sales if you're a master communicator. Not many people know this, but I used to sell windows. You know the old school knock on the door? Window sales. I did window sales for 2 or 3 years, and I'd say this is one of the hardest jobs you could possibly do. And I would always recommend a young man, if he has some time to waste, to go sell windows. And the reason, it's fantastic, because I'll tell you why. It's the hardest one to sell because, 1, nobody wants them. 2, they don't know who you are. And 3, even if you convince them that they need windows, after them not knowing who you are, then they go to all your competitors and then it becomes a price war. It's a nightmare. It's the hardest sales job. If you're selling a Lambo, at least they want the Lambo, right? Nobody wants glass and plastic. They already have windows. So you got to find a way to sell them these windows. How do you do that? And that's where all this master communication comes in. And it's so many subtle little things. Being a good salesman is not necessarily being a liar. It's not being a trickster. It's just understanding what's going to make the person believe and understand what you say. If I walked in and said, would you like new windows? And they essentially said, no, we don't need new windows. Our windows look fine. I would say, but what about the security aspect? While looking at their 3-year-old child. And they'd sit there and go, what do you mean security aspect? And then I talk about how we had the lock 5000 and their locks are easy to break, as if glass isn't glass. It's all the same anyway. And you'd end up selling the windows. You have to find the triggers in people. There's another thing people don't understand about me and my message. Sometimes I sit here and I say things that piss people off because that's how you trigger people to make action. I have often written emails or done videos to, especially to men when I want to help men, to piss them off. You're a loser. You're a dumbass. Andrew, why do you mean? Because you're not going to go to the gym unless I tell you you're a fucking loser. And you are a loser, and I'm not lying to you. You are a loser. The emotional trigger you need to get up off that chair is the fact that you're not important, nobody cares who you are, any girl you're ever in love with I could take, and you're insignificant. And when you die, nobody's interested. That's your fault. You could have been something else. You did that. You failed. It has to be done. You have to be a master communicator. And sometimes that involves also insulting people. It's all a massive tapestry. But to answer your question, for the 20-year-old, he needs to become a master at communicating. But also to be a master at communicating, you also need experiences worth talking about. You have to live a life. You need a degree of wisdom. And wisdom doesn't always come with age. It comes with life lived. I had a guy message me. This is a long time ago when I used to reply to my own emails. Too big now. But he said, I don't have any stories. My life's boring. I said, bro, where do you live? He said, Madrid. I said, bro, ride the train from Madrid to St. Petersburg. Ride the train from Madrid to Vladivostok. Do the Trans-Siberian Railway. Costs you like $300. He goes, oh, but what if I get robbed? Exactly! That's exactly the point! What if you get robbed? Now you have a story. Maybe you'll die, maybe you won't. But you have a story. Don't bring your watch. Have you got a Rolex? No. No one wants to rob you anyway. Don't worry about it. You're a brokey. Get on the train. There has to be that degree of risk to even have a story, because when you have a story, then you can communicate the story. You can't be an empty vessel either. So when you say you're telling me how I build this 20-year-old into a super soldier, yeah, he has to be a master communicator, but he also has to do things which are risky. Risk has value intrinsically linked to it, intrinsically. This is why people, when you do risky things, people want to hear the story. Your coolest stories involve risk. Something went wrong, this could have happened, I almost this, I made it out. Without these risks, you haven't got it. So I would say to the 20-year-old, do what I did. Get in the cage. Get in the ring. Knock someone out. Get knocked out. Train hard. Fighting will teach you everything you need to know about life. You'll learn everything about who you truly are. You'll learn if you're a coward or not. You'll learn everything about perseverance and hard work and dedication. Everything about being underappreciated. You learn everything about fear. You learn all of it. You learn everything about people. You win a fight, check your phone. Lose a fight, check your phone. You learn all about people. You learn all about them. You learn all about women. I learned so much about women through fighting. When I had a fight coming up,